Hi everybody, welcome to my video this week. I am doing something a bit different for this weekly update as I'm currently on holiday. So rather than a weekly update, I want to cover off some sightseeing tips for Glasgow. So next year in February 2020, there's going to be a conference in Glasgow called the Scottish Summit, and it's going to have speakers that are coming from different parts of Europe, internationally. I think we've got speakers from England as well coming up. So it's really going to be a great event for people to learn about things like Azure, Office 365, Power Apps. The whole Microsoft stack is going to be covered. Now, I know there's a few people coming across and it'll be their first time in Scotland and they want to get some sightseeing tips. Now, I've put together a list of things that are really good to see in Glasgow and you should definitely have a chance at visiting if you can. Now, before any of my Scottish compatriots slag me off for only covering off Glasgow, I'm doing it on Glasgow because I know some speakers may only have like a day or several hours before they have to fly back. Even the attendees might have the same. So I want to give them some quick things that they can add to their to-do list and tick off some touristy things in Glasgow while they are in the city. So first things first is we have a sightseeing bus in Glasgow. Now, I love the sightseeing bus and I've been on it a few times now. And it's great because you can hop on and hop off. You buy the ticket for the day, it goes round the majority of Glasgow and you can jump off if you want to stop and see something, grab a bite to eat and then jump back on the bus. And like I say, it covers a whole host of things and it covers it in a short space of time. I think it's maybe 2 hours, I want to say, is the length of the tour. So if you are rushing between the conference and a plane or you don't have much time the next day, the sightseeing bus is great, and I've used sightseeing buses in other countries when I've had similar experiences where I've only had a few hours before I need to go home, and the sightseeing buses are great for covering off things quickly and being able to say you've done some touristy things. So it's a great way to get round, and it does cover off a lot of the things that I'm going to talk about today. So if your interest is sparked by some of the things I mentioned, please look at the sightseeing bus. Now, the first thing on my list is Hampden, which is our national football, or soccer if you're American, stadium, and it's the home of our national team. We call our fans the Tartan Army who follow around our national team. The stadium is a really good stadium and there is a tour and a museum inside it as well. So history of football in Scotland, and that museum is good and worthwhile viewing, especially if you are a football fan and want to see some more about that. The next thing on my list is the Glasgow Cathedral and the Necropolis. Now, before you cringe because you're thinking, why is she telling us to go to a cemetery? It's actually a really good cemetery. It's a Victorian one and it has over 3,500 monuments within the cemetery. And a lot of these monuments are stunning from an architectural and a design perspective. They're massive, you've got some really good ones, and there are tours that go around the necropolis that can point you out some of the famous people that are lying there and just explain why some of the monuments have been placed there as well. So it's definitely one to walk around in, although in February I'm not sure what the weather will be like, so you might have to bring some wellies and a coat to walk around that. Now, next to the Necropolis is Glasgow Cathedral. Now, the Glasgow Cathedral is the oldest cathedral on mainland Scotland. I think the oldest cathedral overall in Scotland is actually in Orkney, but the Glasgow Cathedral is the oldest on the mainland. It's also the oldest building in Glasgow. From an architectural and design point of view, it's a stunning building outside and in, and it's free to enter, so definitely go and have a wee look if you're up that end of the town. Same with the Necropolis, well worth a visit and exploring. Now, while we mentioned free things, it's worth mentioning that the Glasgow museums are free to enter. So you've got things like the Kelvin Grove Museum, Scotland Street School Museum, the Riverside Museum. The Borough Collection is unfortunately closed, but you also got the People's Palace. I love the Kelvin Grove. It's so eclectic. The building is gorgeous. It's in a gorgeous location when the sun's shining, and inside you get weird and wacky things. There's I think this big stuffed elephant is still there. You've got planes hanging from the roof. You've also got a statue of Elvis. There's something for everybody within that museum, and like I say, if the weather is rotten in February when you're here, then Kelvin Grove is all inside. It's got a cafe, and you can have a wee wander around that as well. They often have random exhibitions, I want to call it, but they have rotating kind of exhibitions, so you might be lucky and get something that interests you as well as an exhibition additionally to the museum as well. I also love the Scotland Street School Museum. It was designed by Charles Rennie Mackintosh and is being kept in a manner that looks like a school back in I think it's the 1800s. And it's really quite cool, actually. You can see how people went to school back then and how little technology they had and how they had to cope then as well. So that's another great one, and it's free. So we've also got the Glasgow Central Station. Now, it is a railway station. It is the busiest in Scotland, and it's the 12th busiest in the UK. It was built in 1879, if memory serves me right, and I love it. It's a hubbub of things, of people and trains. There's an amazing glass ceiling across all of it, and you can do a tour. So there's tours that regularly run throughout the Glasgow Central Station, and the tour guides are not only like staff within the railway, they're historians, and that's their hobby. Trains and the history of the station is their hobby. So there's great amounts of information that you can glean from the tour guides there. They do take you downstairs under the platforms, and they show you some of the Victorian platforms, I believe now, as part of the tour, that are currently not in use, but they've actually uncovered when they've been doing some of the history and trying to glean things for the history books and for the tours. So they found an old Victorian train platform. So if you're into your trains, if you love a bit of transport history, then that's one to definitely do and book. Definitely book that one in advance though. It's really, really popular, and even the locals love it. So yeah, book it in advance. It's a great tour, and it's well worth it if you're in as well. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention whisky within Glasgow. Scotland is obviously famous for its Scottish whisky, and we are no stranger to that in Glasgow. We have kind of 3 distilleries locally. So we have the Clydeside Distillery, which is on the banks of the Clyde, and it opened in 2017. So technically it's actually not able to sell you proper whisky because it needs to be 3 years old to be called Scottish whisky. But at some point in 2020, they'll actually have proper whisky. They have a great tour. They'll show you around. They'll show you the brewing process that they're currently going through. They'll let you taste, I think, some of their new make spirit as well. And just explain some of the things about whisky in Scotland. And it's right in the city centre, or near enough on the city centre, and it's on the sightseeing bus route. So it's definitely worth a stop. Again, there's a great cafe and restaurant that has a great selection of whiskies from Scotland, so you can taste them as well. The other 2 distilleries are slightly outside of town. So you've got Mackintosh, which is in Clydebank, which is probably maybe 20-minute drive from the city centre. And it's been open since about 1800, I think. So you'll definitely get some whisky there as well, and they do tours as well. Now, Glengoyne is one that's outside of the city centre, it's north. So it's probably about 30-40 minute drive in the car north of Glasgow. And again, it's been open since the 1800s, so it'll definitely have whisky for you. Now, if you've ever watched the Scottish comedy called Still Game, Glengoyne is the distillery that Jack and Victor went to and got a little bit drunk in one of the episodes. So again, you could combine some whisky tours and tasting with a bit of Still Game memorabilia as well. Now, if you're a fan of beer instead of whisky, we also have a great selection in the city centre as well. So Brewdog, which is an Aberdeen company, they started up north in Scotland, actually have 2 restaurants and bars in the town. So in the city centre, there's one, and just across from Kelvin Grove Museum is also one. Their beer is lovely, and there's lots of selection there as well. You've also got Innis & Gunn, which is a company that's founded in Edinburgh, but have a restaurant through here in Glasgow. They're slightly outside of the city centre, but easily to get to as well, and that's worth a visit. Their restaurant is on a great street, and you can get really atmospheric pictures because it's cobbled and there's lots of like fairy lights draped across it. There's also a small cinema on that street as well, so it's a hive of activity. Not to miss out, West Brewery, which is just off Glasgow Green, our big park in the city. It's a kind of German Glaswegian mix of beer, and you'll get some German food there, German style food in that as well. Now, I can't not talk about beer and Glasgow and not talk about Tennent's. Tennent's isn't probably the best beer you'll ever taste. It is brewed locally and it has been since, again, the 1800s. It has a rich history, both from its brewing and distilling process and also from what it does for Glasgow and Scotland as a whole, to be honest. Again, it's maybe not the best beer, but their tour is great. I've been on their tour twice actually and really enjoy it. Their tour guides are full of knowledge and information, and it's set up for a great wee event. So it's easy to get to. You can walk to Tennent's from the city centre. It's very near to the Necropolis. They also do a kind of walking tour of Glasgow that starts off at the Cathedral and then finishes off in the brewery, and you can get some beer. So there's definitely different options if you want to try and combine a bit of beer tasting and Glasgow as well. Next to Tennent's as well is the Drygate Brewery. They've been around since 2014 and they're a bit of a craft brewer, but they also do tours and they have a restaurant as well. So there's definitely a lot of options if you want to partake in a bit of alcohol while you're here in Glasgow. One thing I wanted to mention was we do have lots of sporting events happening in Glasgow, but one I wanted to highlight was the Glasgow Clan, which is our ice hockey team, are playing the night before the event on the 28th of February up at the event arena, Braehead. Now, Braehead is also a shopping centre and has lots of food, and there's cinema. We even have a ski slope which has real snow inside as well up at Braehead. So again, if the weather's really rubbish in February when you're over, you can head up to Braehead, which is probably maybe 15-20 minutes in a car or a bus up to from the city centre, and you can have a go in the cinema. You could maybe even go skiing or snowboarding and then catch the Clan game at night. Now, from memory, when I went last time to an ice hockey game, I was able to get tickets at the last minute, but again, you should be able to find them online if you do want to have a go at them as well. Now, for transport, you definitely have to have a try on the Glasgow Subway. The Glasgow Subway is the third oldest subway in the world, and that's behind the London Underground and the Budapest subway. The Glasgow Subway is nicknamed the Clockwork Orange because it goes in a circle and it's 6.5 miles long. One train goes clockwise and the other one goes anti-clockwise. So if you ever get on the wrong train, just stay on it because eventually you'll get to your station because they both just go round in a circle. It's a lot smaller, it's a lot easier to navigate if you've ever been to London Underground. But again, it's a great experience, it's good fun, and you can easily negotiate some of the things. So say if you're staying in the city centre and wanted to go out to the Innocent and Gun restaurant that I mentioned, you can jump on the subway and you're there within 10 minutes and it's a quick walk from the station. So there's definitely options there. And like I say, it's definitely one not to miss. Being the third oldest subway in the world, you definitely want to tick that off and say you've done that. Now, if you've done some sightseeing and you're hungry, I would recommend a wee stop at the Mackintosh at the Willows cafe. Now, this was recently done up, and I want to say 2018, I think it was opened. And it's been totally refurbed in the style and design of Charles Rennie Mackintosh and his wife, Margaret MacDonald. I love Charles Rennie Mackintosh stuff, and the cafe is amazing what they've done. They've done it with a lot of crowdfunding, with some lottery money. It's been a pure love of work of love. The cafe refurb, and the food is delicious as well. They have a great selection from afternoon teas to full-on lunches to champagne afternoon teas if you wanted them. Again, if you are a fan of Charles Rennie Mackintosh, then it's definitely the place to go for something to eat. We've also got Pizza Punks, which is a great pizza restaurant where you can create your own. I recently went there and went a bit crazy with some of the toppings. You can literally make your own, from things like iron brew pulled pork to haggis on your pizza. There's definitely an experience there for everybody, and it's relatively cheap as well. For Scottish fare, go to Rab Ha's. It's a nice wee pub restaurant that has lots of Scottish dishes with local produce as well. So that's a whirlwind stop of things you can do in Glasgow, and like I say, I've probably missed off an absolute ton of things that people would recommend to do. I just wanted to give you a wee flavour of some of the things that you could do while you were in the city and visiting Scottish Summit. So next week I will be back, although I will be travelling. So I'm back off holiday next week, and then I'm heading to Belgium. So I'm speaking at Cloud Brew in Belgium next week. I'm really looking forward to that, and it should be good fun. So if you've ever been to Belgium and have some sightseeing tips for me, although I won't have a lot of time, any tips will be gratefully received, and I can have a wee bit of fun when I'm over there. And then the week after that, things should be back to normal. I should be at home and I should have a weekly update video as normal. But yeah, hopefully you've got some interesting ideas for Glasgow sightseeing. And oh yeah, did you know the unicorn is actually the national animal of Scotland? So anyway, I will sign off, and yeah, have fun, and I will catch you in my next video.